Hello, Drum School drummer friends. Hope everybody's keeping well. It's Alan here. Today we're going to do a lesson for the foundation level drummers or beginner drummers, and we're going to talk about how to play the cymbals that make up the main ones that we use on our drum set. So we're going to be looking at how we play the hi-hat, how we play the crash cymbal, how we play the ride cymbal. Also, just to say that I won't go into too much detail about hi-hat technique. I already have a video on my site that deals with that, and you should check that out. But as I say, this is just for beginner level drummers to help you to know how, for instance, to strike those cymbals whenever you're beginning to move on in your playing career. So let's get to it. Okay, so we're talking about the hi-hat, the crash cymbal, and the ride cymbal. We're going to start on the ride cymbal because each cymbal has three main parts. Here we have the bell. I think it's quite obvious where the bell is. Right in the center of the cymbal. Here we have the bow, which is in between the bell and the edge of the cymbal. The bow. And here we have the edge. And you can hear that sustain building up there when I'm playing the edge. Still ringing. Okay, when we're playing and we're using the ride cymbal, most of the time you'll find that drummers will play the pattern, the steady pattern, on the bow, which is in the middle part of the cymbal in and around here. Okay? Occasionally, you will hear drummers play the bell if they want a bit more cut to come through on whatever piece they're playing. And you can see I'm playing that with the sort of the neck or even the shoulder of the stick there. Really cuts through. But all cymbals have those three parts. I know that there's some cymbals that you can get that are flat in the middle, so I suppose in one sense wouldn't have a bell, but generally speaking, when we're talking about traditional cymbals, there's a bell, there's a bow, and there's the edge. Okay, so let's stick with the ride cymbal. You saw me play, first of all, I was playing with the bead, which is the tip of the stick, and I was playing on the bow of the cymbal. All right. I was also playing around about here. Okay. I refer to that as 9 o'clock. The reason that I wanted to do this lesson was that over the years I've seen so many beginner players, and they'll just play the cymbals in any old place. Okay, and what you want to try to do right at the start is to learn where's the best place to play this. So you don't want to be on what I would call the outside of the cymbal there, because if you're moving over to play a crash, this nut might get in the way for starters. So you want to keep it there. As I say, that's 9 o'clock, and it's on the what we call the inside of the cymbal. All right. So that's the outside of the cymbal. This is the inside of the cymbal. Also, you're closer to the crash and you don't have anything else, generally speaking, in the way, unless you've got a whole set of splash cymbals and cowbells and all sorts of things going on there. But generally speaking, we want to keep our stick playing there, 9 o'clock on the inside of the cymbal. The reason I call it 9 o'clock is because up there is going to be 12, 6, 3, 9. Okay, so we're in the in the bow of the cymbal about there. That's probably the best place when you're playing the main body or the bow of the cymbal to play. And then you're closer to get over to play the crash cymbal. Obviously, one of the reasons for playing the ride cymbal and any of the cymbals in the same place is to get a consistent sound. I have had students in the past and the stick bounces all over the place. And I've stopped them and I've said, if you were in a recording studio, the engineer or the producer might say to you, which one is it? And you would scratch your head and say, what does he mean, which one is it? What he's asking is, which sound is it that you want us to capture? Because he's sitting on the other side of the glass in the mixing in the recording studio. He's looking at the mixing desk and he's thinking, well, which sound is it? Is it this one? Is it this one? Is it this one? Is it that one? So it's all a bit random, all right? So one of the reasons that you want to play in the same spot is to get a consistent sound. Unless, of course, you're then going to move to the bell, and we'll come to that in a minute. This is mainly about how to play the cymbal, okay? We don't want to get into grooves and all that sort of stuff just yet. Okay, so how to play it. So, you got your cymbal. You would now know that there's a bell, there's a bow, and there's an edge. Most of the time, and certainly for foundation level drummers, I would recommend sticking with the bow. I do know that there's some grade 1 pieces where you have to play the bell, but at least at this stage, I don't think that you're hopping backwards and forwards between the bell and the bow. All right? So you wouldn't be doing... You wouldn't be doing that sort of thing. Up to speed as well. Might be a bit more tricky for foundation level drummers. But you're sticking with playing on the bow. So that's a good sort of rule of thumb, okay, to play about here. On the inside of the cymbal, you're playing about 9 o'clock. And if you try to keep that in the back of your mind when you're practicing, it'll eventually come out and you're playing. I know beginner level drummers, foundation level drummers, it's hard sometimes just to remember everything that we need to do, especially if we're getting into a piece and we're trying to learn a new piece. However, keep it in the back of your mind and it'll eventually become a habit. That's what you really want to do, and you want to be able to control your stick and where you're playing. I also know that for those of us, me included, who are watching YouTube, and sometimes we'll see drummers and do all sorts of things and they'll play in all sorts of ways. They might, instead of using the ride cymbal, actually play a steady pattern on the crash cymbal, or on the ride cymbal, they might play a steady pattern on the edge, something like this. I don't really think that's for us for today. We'll maybe come back to that at a later stage whenever you've progressed on. So, again, generally speaking, we want to play in and around here, and we also want to play using the tip or the bead of the stick. All right, that gets us the best sound out of the ride cymbal. Now let's think about the hi-hat. Just in the same way as I was saying that it's a good place to play the ride cymbal there on the inside of the cymbal, thinking about a clock face and that being 9 o'clock. Similarly, on the hi-hat, I would be thinking about this as a clock face, 12, 6, 3, and 9. And I'd be trying to aim at playing in and around there, which is kind of 3 o'clock. All right? We still have a bell, we still have the bow, and we still have the edge on the cymbal. Still a traditional setup on the cymbal. All right? But again, over the years I've seen all sorts of players. Even last week I watched a young student, and he started there and all of a sudden he was way around here. And then, of course, he went to play the crash cymbal, and the rod of the hi-hat stand was in the way. And I was trying to get him to get his own hand and just practice keeping it there, and he was doing this. All right. So we want to keep it in the same place if we can. All right. Again, foundation level drummers, beginner level drummers. These are all new things that you're still learning, but that's where you want it to be, in and around there. Again, with the bead. Now, I recommend all my students playing with the bead and try to steer clear of playing with the neck or the shoulder of the stick on the hi-hat like that. First and foremost, if you only ever play like that on the hi-hat, it's actually quite tricky, really hard to then try to be consistent whenever you're trying to play with the bead. Whereas if you do it the other way around, you play with the bead, then you can always control your stick and play like this if you're wanting that harder, rockier type of sound. But for foundation level drummers, beginner drummers, trust me, learn to play with the bead. Apart from anything else, if you think about it, why else would you not do that whenever you play the ride cymbal like that? Bring it over, why change? Okay, so play there in and around 3 o'clock and play with the bead and try to get used to keeping your stick in the same place and using the same technique. One of the things that I've loved over the years about being a drummer is finding out about the history of drums and cymbals. Did you know, and you can Google this because we're not going to go into too much detail here, but did you know that the hi-hat used to be called a lowboy, all right, or a snowshoe? So if you've ever seen any news reports or any history programs about the explorers of the Antarctic, and you saw the kind of the snowshoes that they were wearing, it was that kind of shape. The key was that the cymbals were way down low, almost down to where your foot is on the foot plate there. And the only sound really that you were able to get was that kind of sound of marching cymbals or orchestral cymbals. But then whenever someone had the idea of putting a rod all the way through and then getting a metal tube and bringing the hi-hats up, then completely changed it because we were able to play with our stick and also play a swing pattern. All right, so those two things actually happened in and around the same time. And again, if you want to check out the history of swing and where it came from, and jazz, and also the fact that the hi-hat cymbals and that mechanism affected the music. So it's very interesting. Said that we weren't going to get into that really today. Also said that we weren't going to get into opening and closing the hi-hat. I do have a lesson on my site that deals with that. I just want to stick with striking the cymbals, how to play the cymbals. So let's get back to that. So one last time, just thinking about playing the hi-hat, we're going to play it in and around 3 o'clock there. Always remember that if you're left-handed, everything is going to be reversed, okay? So take that on board. So we're going to play, for me anyway, right-handed. I'm going to play in and around about 3 o'clock, and I'm going to try to keep the stick there. Really good exercise, beginner drummers, foundation level drummers. There's your quavers. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, and try to keep the sound consistent. Right. And in contrast to the dry sound, the short sound of the hi-hat, we've got the more open sound of the ride cymbal. And I'm just going to play the bow. We're not going to get into the bell just yet. So foundation level drummers, maybe some of the pieces that you're going through, they maybe start off on the hi-hat, and then maybe in a section that's a bit like a chorus, you might move on to the ride cymbal. That's a good place to start, because that's generally speaking what a lot of songs, simple, straightforward pop songs, tend to do. The verse uses maybe the hi-hat, and then in the chorus, to give it a bit of a lift, they move on to the ride cymbal to create that more open sound, and then maybe back again. And then maybe on a solo, guitar solo or another instrumental solo, might move back onto the ride cymbal. In our thinking at this stage for foundation level, beginner level drummers, as I say, that's a pretty good place to be thinking to start. So stick with that, and at this stage, you won't go too far wrong. All right, so we've thought about the hi-hat, we've thought about the ride cymbal. Let's think about how to play the crash cymbal. Okay, so here I have a 16-inch traditional crash cymbal. Okay, this lesson is about how to play the cymbals. You saw me glancing the edge of the crash, and that technically is the proper way to play the crash cymbals. You would never hit a cymbal dead on. Although sometimes, I suppose even I have to confess, if I'm doing a gig and fast and furious drum fill and I want to play a crash at the end of a fill, I may not always just get it quite right. But technically speaking, that's the way to do it. It's that kind of movement, and we're meant to glance the cymbals. So again, this is about how to play rather than when to play, but obviously we need to mention when we are playing our hi-hat. We played some steady patterns there earlier, crotchets and quavers, quarters and eighth notes, and similarly in the ride cymbal. So maybe in a verse of a song might be playing the hi-hat. Maybe whenever we move on to a chorus or there's a solo, we might move on to the ride cymbal. And okay, we're still at this stage just talking simple song structures here. We're not going to get into if we're playing jazz or swing, where virtually everything it could be played on the ride cymbal and then keeping time on the hi-hat. Foundation level drummers, we're going to steer clear of that just for the minute. So back to the crash. The crash accentuates those parts of the songs, maybe at the end of a drum fill where we're leading into a chorus. Or something like that. Or at another time, whenever we're going into a solo, we're going to play a crash, and that lifts the song. Key thing to remember is, generally speaking, crash cymbals are brighter than ride cymbals. And definitely brighter than a closed hi-hat. Okay? So essentially when it comes to the crash, that's it. And really we should be trying to glance. But again, that's a hard thing for beginner, foundation level drummers just to get used to. But apart from anything else, go easy on your crash cymbals, especially if you've just invested in some cymbals like what I did just last year. So you want to go easy on those. technically speaking, we should be glancing. Again, we've got a bell, we've got a bow, and we've got an edge. And whenever we do this, obviously we're playing the edge. All right. So, okay, foundation level drummers, beginner drummers, hopefully that was helpful. I'm just going to do a brief recap on what we've learnt about how to play the cymbals. So, again, try most of the time whenever you're playing to use the beat. Try not to let your hand slip down on the hi-hat where you're playing with the neck or the shoulder. Again, I have a lesson on my site that deals with stick control and how to do that. So I'm not going to get into that today, but you can check that out. Okay? So we're going to be playing the hi-hat. I'm right-handed, so I'm aiming at about 3 o'clock, about there, okay? Just about there. If I'm playing the right cymbal, I'm thinking about it, again, like a clock face, 12, 6, 3, 9 o'clock on the bow. And if I'm going to do a tasty drum fill and I want to finish off as I go from a verse into a chorus or a verse into a guitar lead break, I'm going to glance the crash cymbal as best as I can. All right? Because I don't want to create a crack in it. I'll have to then spend more money getting some more, okay? So, hi-hat, right cymbal, crash. Okay, let me conclude by just playing a simple pattern that hopefully you'll be able to play foundation level drummers, and then we'll think about where we're going to be playing those cymbals and apply what we have learnt today. So here we go.